and then I'm finding myself, I'm having to let them listen to songs with real lyrics.
Right.
And then you have to interpret it for them.
Yes.
Like the one was listening to, what's the song? Coward of the County.
Oh, yes.
Right?
Yes. I can see it in this.
Yeah, and after about a month of listening, he realized that, where the scene where the
Kenny Rogers.
Kenny Rogers, correct.
Yes. Still got it.
Apparently. Oh, sorry. I digress. Anyway,
I digress.
So anyway, after about a month of listening to this song, he finally realized that the scene where it talks about her dress being torn means that she had been violated by these three guys. I'm like, really?
Really? This is made for public radio?
Anyway, yeah.
All right. Well, country-loving songs aside, and of course, world's greatest TV moments to one side, it is time to obviously kick off today's program. And as we have done for the last 7 episodes, we will continue again today because it's there. A little opportunity for some good news to share with our listening audience. So again, taking directly from the news headlines on wherever I can find them, really. I search for good news now. We got I never.
Is that age or what?
I don't know. It's a new sensation. It's a different feeling. It's a different
Just
feeling.
trying to ease your guilty feelings.
I think that's what it is.
For bashing people.
I'm trying to get into heaven, buddy. I'm trying to get into heaven.
Go ahead.
We see 3 senior linesmen who spent the majority of their careers in Little Cayman or have retired.
I'm smiling because I'm thinking after a Chin Chung joke, you might have to define exactly what a linesman is. I'm sorry, I couldn't resist.
You need Jesus in the worst of ways. I'm just saying,
Yeah.
I love you like a brother, but you need Jesus.
Hey, listen, we need to give people, people are stuck in traffic, Austin. This is serious business, okay? I don't know why you're laughing.
I don't know why I'm
people
laughing.
People are stuck in traffic.
They're stuck in traffic. The last thing you want to do is laugh.
The head niece right now, people are going to say, I'm out for a 2-hour journey. The least we can do is give them something to smile about.
At least we can do is give them something to smile about.
Loosen up the gravity a little bit.
Yeah,
so linesman.
Yeah, so linesman. We better be on air. Someone's asking me if we're on air, and I said, yeah, we should be on air. The stream is rolling. Check us out on YouTube and Instagram. We should be simulcasting live as we speak. So 3 linesmen. For more than a quarter of a century, Island Energy linesmen, and again, let me preface this by saying it hasn't been for a quarter of a century under Island Energy. Island Energy was formerly Brack Power and Light, which recently sold, and the name of the company transitioned to Island Energy. But I digress.
Right.
Island Energy linesmen Wade Moore Bush, Philborn Ayton, and Robert Truckin are calling it quits this month after a combined total of 68 years of service to the Cayman Islands and specifically to Little Cayman. Truckin, age 72, who originally came to Cayman over 30 years ago from Canada, enjoyed a 15-year career on Little Cayman as their assistant chief engineer. We had Philborn Ayton, who left his homeland in Jamaica to come to Cayman to work as a mechanic and gave 26 years of service to Island Energy. And Wade Moore Bush, the Caymanian rounding up the 3, retires after 27 years of dedicated service as their assistant line supervisor in Little Cayman. Now, Bush, of course, you trust the last name. I thought he made the best, personal comment. I loved it. Talk about, laughing whilst reading. Bush says he's already worked out his retirement plan. You might like this. Get a little more rest, less stress, fishing, and drinking beer. That's the plan.
It's 5 o'clock somewhere.
I'm sure there's some country music mixed into all of that, but that sounds like a pretty
But
good...
as I'm listening to you, I'm also thinking, I think it's a good preface for a joke because you could hear, okay, so there were 3 linesmen, one from Jamaica, one from Canada. I thought you
They're all getting ready to retire, see?
Yeah. It goes something like this, okay?
All 3 men, however, on a serious note, encouraged young Caymanians to consider learning a trade as it helps to set them up on a career path. Mr. Bush specifically went on to say, study hard and be honest and take care of your job when you get it.
The Caymanian was there longer, right?
He was there the longest, 27 years, which, again, is encouraging in this instance. And I couldn't have planned it any better if I'd wrote the article myself.
So linking it to yesterday's discussion, he probably trained the two of those guys.
He probably did. He probably had a hand in it. And again, that was back when
Sorry, I couldn't help myself.
companies trained in-house, but we digress. We're handing out sugar now, not salt. Don't take me down that road. Every time I try to get out, they pull me back in.
Yeah, soprano move.
You're quite right. But again, I think there's some sage advice in there from those three linesmen.
Yeah.
And with all seriousness, we want to say congratulations for their contributions. These are folks that survived Ivan and the devastation that went through that. And if Ivan wasn't harshly enough, don't forget Hurricane Paloma, which impacted the sister islands. Was their Ivan, if you will, as such. And that was a nightmare. If you remember, obviously, living through either of those, and you know the difficulties getting reconnected in Grand Cayman, multiply those troubles by, 100 in Little Cayman, or by 200 in Little Cayman, by 100 in Cayman Brac, all right? So it took a little while, a lot of frustration, a lot of challenges, a lot of taking you back to, the smoke pot days, as the case may be. It certainly was Ivan. Boy, Ivan brought them mosquitoes out in force. I shudder to think about it. But they lived through it all, and through it all they worked dedicatedly, tirelessly, giving of their time and energies and skills to keeping Little Cayman connected. And today we honor Wade Moore Bush, Philborn Ayton, and Robert Truckin. I hope I'm pronouncing your last name right, Mr. Truckin, on your retirement.
It's a wonderful Cayman story where three distinct nationalities can work together.
No, absolutely. It's a fantastic story.
And probably will go and have a drink together, too.
Again, we digress for a moment. I mean, we cannot diminish this fact. Despite all of the challenges and, of course, our complaints and criticism and what's broken and the fact that we've been having these conversations for 50-plus years as we head into another election campaign, hoping somehow that things will be different this time around, optimistically. But that is the magic of Cayman, one of the magics of Cayman. We've got an island, 26 square miles, over 130 different nationalities, and everyone living in relative harmony one with the other. That's saying something for a small place in the world. And as we like to say, it has to be more than just coincidence, right? Has to be.
Definitely.
Again, we see the hand of God in everything, and that's one of those areas where we see Cayman continues to be not lucky, but blessed. But hey, that's just our opinion. Some more good news, this time from Cayman's young people themselves. Another article appeared, I believe this one from the Compass, with the headlines, Cayman students win robotics prize in Florida competition.
Wow.
Cayman's youth continues to shine in the field of robotics and overseas competitions after picking up several awards in Florida last week. On Saturday, the 8th of February, 4345 robotics teams participated in the VEX IQ Rapid Relay Tournament in Kissimmee, Florida. Two of the teams won judges' awards, and a third squad won third prize in the Teamwork Challenge. But here's the thing. You're thinking robotics. You're thinking young students. You're thinking, high school-age kids. No, you'd be wrong. The 3 or 4 member teams were made up of students aged 7 to 12. And if they're doing this great between 7 and 12, they're off to a fantastic start. I can't imagine what they're going to be winning when they reach high school. But they've been working since August to design and build code and drive robots for this year's competition. So it's kind of like Robot Wars you see sometimes on USA. You ever seen those?
I think I did.
Oh, it's a lot of fun. It's quality TV moment, baby.
Austin, I can't say it was anything I watched too long, but I did see it in a glimpse.
That in the
so you watch it, I take it.
Yes, the demolition derby. Just smaller with smaller robots, going at it. Oh, it's fantastic. It's fantastic. A lot of fun. Hours and hours of fun.
Just destroying stuff.
Hours and hours of fun. It's like the Big Bang Theory. Just very violent. The squads participated alongside at least 40 other teams from Central Florida, including both primary and middle school teams. The all-girls team received 2 coveted judges' awards. After interviewing all the teams, the judges observed that the girls' team exhibited perseverance and resilience in spite of many constraints throughout the season. So clearly they've had some challenges, but they have not allowed those challenges to, dissuade them, discourage them. They kept, what are you laughing about? What's killing you up over there? You remember you're on webcam, so people can actually see you turning red as I speak. Before we had the magic of radio, you could hear but not see, but not anymore. So what's killing you?
You won't believe what I was thinking of.
I probably won't believe it. Can it be said over the radio, Ellio?
Yeah, it can.
Okay.
Listen,
I'm nervous, but go ahead.
This is giving something people to tease me about. But there I was in middle school. They had a hula hoop competition.
Come on, son, spit it out.
They had a hula hoop competition. I entered it, Austin.
You entered it.
Yeah.
That does not surprise me.
And here's the bad part. There I was with the last one. I'm the last one competing with this one girl, and I said, Ellio, I think you should lose so you don't beat the girl.
And did you lose?
No, and then the competitive side of me came out, and I said, screw that.
I forget that. I'm winning that little ribbon. I'm taking that home to mama.
So there I was shaking my hips right straight to victory, Austin. I'm sorry, that image came to my mind when you talked about the girls. I couldn't help it.
Well, that reminds me of Donald J. Trump and another one of his executive orders, which came down and says he's removed all men from women's sports. No more. So
that sounds fair.
If you identify as a man or you identify as something else, you were born as a man, a woman, and became a man, all of you can no longer participate. A man can no longer participate in female sports.
Well, the thing is,
So
that
he
hula hoop
came a
was
little 40
open.
years too late.
Hula hoop was open.
Case.
No, the hula hoop was open. This wasn't, This was just, it's just something that you would expect the girls to nominate, but unfortunately, they weren't cutting the mustard that day, Austin.
The mustard, you had to show them what hips can do.
Come on, and then you remember the girls used to play that elastic jump and stuff. Hey, I can't help it if you're...
A double Dutch?
Yeah, all that kind of stuff, I can't help it if you're not performing,
Yes.
I'm not here to drag laggards. It's cut it or don't.
Cut it or don't.
Proper get off the pot.
I'm coming for that ribbon. Your competitive side kicked in. I don't care if you're girls. I don't care if you're in kindergarten. I'm going to beat you today. That's what Ellio said.
Yeah, that's exactly what I said.
Oh, my
and
God.
by the way, I need to get the link, Austin. We need to pass that around.
That sort of that says a lot about, really, that I believe. Really, he's as competitive today as he ever was. Anyway, back to the 7 and 12-year-olds, if I may.
Sure.
So the all-girls team, again, won the coveted Judges Awards, and we give them credit for their perseverance and resilience. Another team won the Sportsmanship Award, which recognizes a high degree of good sportsmanship, helpfulness, respectfulness, and positive attitude both on and off the competition field. Again, valuable qualities to have in life as well as in work, so congratulations to that team. And then, of course, the third team qualified for the event finals, but ultimately finished in third place overall, with some of those competitors competing for the first time. So we have first-time competitors aged 7 to 12 going off to a tournament for robotics in Florida, competing against some 40 other teams, and again, placing third.
What is this?
I don't know, but you're playing our link.
I'm looking for the link.
You are. Well, you found it, I believe.
I did.
You
Thank
definitely found it.
I got to forward it around. Sorry, Austin.
I understand. You forward away. So just a little bit of information, because I think it's good news, and a little plug for 345 Robotics. 345 Robotics is the Cayman Islands nonprofit organization dedicated to improving robotics learning for young people. The group works in partnership with the U.S.-based Robotics and Education Competition Foundation to enable Cayman Islands teams to participate in the global VEX IQ robotics competition, which attracts some 1.1 million participants in over 70 countries. So it's fantastic exposure for the Cayman Islands, fantastic exposure for the young people who compete.
For the young ones, yeah.
Yeah, indeed. You get to know people, you get to learn skills. You get to make some friends. Really, it sounds like a fantastic program. This was the second overseas event in which 345 Robotics participated this year, with 4 members traveling to Florida for the Robolution 2025.
I like that one.
I like that word too, Robolution. And with 3 minutes, just a little bit under 4 minutes remaining before we have to pause and go off to the top of the hour news brought to you by the BBC. Another bit of good news, and this one from the young to the not so young. The University College of the Cayman Islands is proud to announce that $250,000 in private scholarships are now available to support Caymanian students for the 2025 academic year. Some 24 leading local businesses and organizations have come together to invest in the education and future careers of young Caymanians, providing financial assistance across various disciplines, including business, STEM, arts, social sciences, and technical and vocational education. Now, these scholarships are designed to remove the financial barriers for students and in many cases includes internship opportunities, giving the recipients real-world experience alongside their studies. Now, at least 4 notable contributions include the Peter N. Thompson Scholarship, which awards $25,000 CI annually for students pursuing degrees in liberal arts, sciences, and social sciences. The Health City Cayman STEM Grant Program, which awards $10,000 CI per year per student in STEM-related fields. We have the Royal Bank of Canada Cayman Limited donating for their $20,000 CI a year for Caymanian students pursuing an associate's or TVET degree. Harmonic Fund Services and their contribution of $15,000 per year per student for Caymanian students pursuing any discipline, so they leave really the landscape wide open for young Caymanians, and those who qualify obviously have a chance of getting a $15,000 a year scholarship. And last but not least, CIBC Cayman Limited Scholarship, which contributes $15,000 CI per year per student for students pursuing associate or bachelor's level degrees, including internship opportunities during those studies. So they're learning the bookwork, and then when they come home, obviously for summer and Christmas and Easter holiday, they can work alongside some of the counterparts and learn what it's like on the job. These scholarships reflect the commitment of Cayman's corporate sector to helping UCCI to build a skilled and knowledgeable workforce. So kudos and much credit goes to all of those firms, but specifically the 24 leading local businesses for anteing up some dollars, which I'm sure for many it wasn't that much of a stretch, but we are grateful for every dollar that is contributed going to kids of the next generation. Some comments with 1 minute left.
Well, I would just simply say it ties in very nicely with our discussion yesterday. We talked about all the challenges in the workplace and where we might want to critique and criticize or whatever and say, hey, you guys are not doing enough in the workplace. At least we're pleased to hear that they're actually making contributions directly towards the institutions that offers learning for Caymanians.
Absolutely, absolutely. So see, we dish out a little sugar, sometimes a little salt, but we dish it out fairly and balanced at all times.
That's right.
It is, 4:48. We're going to pause, take a short commercial break. Time to check in with your top-of-the-hour news, brought to you by the BBC. But when we come back, our main topic for the day, some election candidates are going to have to move some of their election campaign signs.
Or not.
Or not. That's coming up next here on Bobo FM.
How can we understand the world better?
The BBC World Service is a window onto the wider world.
The vantage point from which to survey a new horizon.
News, reports, and analysis from around the world.
Stories we think matter.
Different people from different societies.
We get to the heart of global issues.
News, stories, and global perspectives from the BBC World Service.
The home of the BBC World Service. This is Bobo FM.
The BBC World Service, the world's radio station.
The BBC World Service makes programs with a uniquely global perspective.
Enlighten us. Where do we start?
The latest world news and current affairs.
The very best in global arts and culture.
What has been happening on the financial markets today.
Social issues, political stories.
Everything was there in a way that I never heard before.
The BBC World Service.
The home of the BBC World Service. This is Bobo FM.
Welcome to our newsroom here in central London. We place ourselves here at a little desk right in the thick of things.
OS from the BBC.
We can catch the very latest news from our colleagues, not just in this enormous room, but also from our colleagues around the world.
I'm in the room where they're treating children.
This is a combat zone.
The situation after the typhoon is very complicated.
It was a very tense situation.
OS from the BBC.
The home of the BBC World Service. This is Bobo FM. This is Bobo FM, powered by Doctors Hospital. 24/7 urgent care, located in Georgetown at the top of Walker's Road. Introducing the Doctors Hospital Specialty Clinic, conveniently located in the Strand. To book your appointment at Doctors Hospital, call 325-9000. Across Cayman on 89.1 FM, online and on your smart speaker. The home of the BBC World Service. This is Bobo FM.
Hello, I'm Roisin Hastie with the BBC News. Russia and the United States have outlined a dramatic reset of their relationship after their first high-level meeting since Moscow's full-scale invasion of Ukraine. They agreed to form negotiating teams to try to end the war and to work towards restoring diplomatic and economic ties. Secretary of State Marco Rubio, who led the US team at the talks in Saudi Arabia, said the Trump administration wants to bring about a lasting solution to the war in Ukraine.
The goal of today's meeting was to follow up on the phone call the President had a week ago and begin to establish those lines of communication. The work remains. Today is the first step of a long and difficult journey, but an important one. And President Trump is committed to bringing an end to this conflict, and as he said when he campaigned for president. And he wants it to end in a way that's fair. He wants it to end in a way that's sustainable and enduring, not that leads to another conflict in 2 to 3 years.
President Volodymyr Zelensky has again stressed that Ukraine must be involved in any talks about ending the war. Speaking on a visit to Turkey, he said other European countries should also be given a say. He added that Ukraine would never recognise the territory Russia has seized. The Vatican says Pope Francis, who's 88, is suffering from pneumonia in both lungs. He continues to receive treatment in hospital in Rome. Bethany Bell reports from Rome.
The Vatican said Pope Francis had a chest CT scan, which showed the onset of pneumonia in both lungs. It said the Pope's condition continued to present what it called a complex picture. The pontiff has been suffering from a respiratory tract infection for which he's received antibiotic cortisone treatment. The Vatican said the Pope was in good spirits and spent the day reading, resting and praying. He thanked the faithful for their good wishes and asked them to continue praying for him.
New figures released by NASA indicate that a large asteroid now has a 3.1% chance of hitting Earth. The object, known as 2024 YR4, has the potential to hit the planet in December 2032. Sophie Glass-Ryan reports.
When the asteroid was first spotted last December, it was predicted to have a just over 1% chance of impact with Earth. Now, figures quietly released on NASA's website show that probability has crept up to 3.1%. Experts have said there is no need to panic, as the probability will likely drop to zero again as astronomers gather more data. The asteroid is estimated to be between 40 and 90 metres wide. It could cause severe damage in the unlikely event where it hit a populated area. However, it is not large enough to bring about a global catastrophe.
You're listening to the latest world news from the BBC. The chief executive of Toronto International Airport has praised the aircrew and emergency workers who safely evacuated all 74 passengers from a plane that crash-landed on Monday. Deborah Flint said it had been a textbook rescue operation and said those involved were heroes. The Delta Airlines flight caught fire and flipped upside down as it came in to land on a flight from Minneapolis. 2 passengers are still in hospital. The President of Ecuador, Daniel Noboa, has said that organised crime makes as much as $30 billion a year through activities including drug trafficking, extortion and illegal mining. That's about a quarter of Ecuador's GDP. He urged Ecuadorians to support his anti-crime policies, saying many still failed to understand the security forces were fighting a real war. He said the murder of an Air Force colonel who was shot by gunmen last week showed the scale of the problem.
We are in a war. There are still people who say, no, we're not at war. They don't consider that we are in a war situation. If they kill a colonel in the Air Force, in this case, you are at war.
Lebanese residents returning to their empty villages in the south following Israel's military withdrawal have found scenes of widespread destruction. BBC correspondents who visited 2 villages say every building there had been damaged or destroyed. Emergency services say they've recovered 23 bodies. Chad's army says it's ended a 4-month operation against Boko Haram in the west of the country. It said it had killed nearly 300 jihadists and the group could no longer do harm in the region. President Mohammed Idris Deby launched the offensive in October last year in response to a major Boko Haram attack on a military base in the Lake Chad region. BBC News.
The views and opinions expressed on Straight Talk with Austin and Ellio do not necessarily reflect or represent the views of Stingray Media, its staff, or contributors. Callers to the program accept full responsibility for the views expressed. The show host and affiliates are not liable for any statements made or any harm claimed. All callers to the program indemnify Straight Talk from all claims. Offensive, defamatory, or unlawful content will not be tolerated. Be a part of the conversation by calling 745-2626. Now, here's Straight Talk with Austin and Ellio on Bobo FM.
And welcome back, K-Man, to more Straight Talk. I'm your host, Austin Harris.
And I'm Ellio Solomon. All the way up on the, what time is it now in the studio? 5:06?
It is 5:06 in studios, and we begin now into our 53 minutes of commercial-free, non-stop talk on the issues that certainly matter in your life. The phone lines are open, 745-2626. Whether you want to be a part of our conversation or you want to take us in another direction, well, by all means, the choice is yours, 745-2626. Give us a call. If talking over the phone lines isn't your thing, or perhaps you want to save a couple of dollars in your valuable credit, you can send us a voice note over WhatsApp by dialing 928-2562 and sharing your voice note there. You may also, if voice notes aren't your thing, send us a quick note as you would a text or email also on WhatsApp, and we will share those thoughts whilst we're on the air. We're also simulcasting live, first of all, on Bobo FM, and then also online. We're streaming over YouTube and Instagram. On Instagram, at the moment, we're using a partner in media, the Rec Room 345. That's Rec, R-E-C, Room 345. If you're on Instagram and want to pick us up, mostly on your phone, on your travel home or whatever the case may be, you can see and hear us at the same time. So we're ready to move on to the first headline of the day. So in a headline that appeared again, I believe, from the Cayman Compass. Hang on, I see a WhatsApp message. Let me just see if there's a comment for us before I start us off. No, it's just a link from Facebook, which I haven't had a chance to see yet. So no. So again, looking at the pages of the Cayman Compass, under the headline, election candidates to be ordered to move billboards that are breaching new signage rules. Let me just, again, share some of the salient bits, and then we can comment. It begins, the National Roads Authority and Planning Department are warning that they may remove the signs of any political candidate who breaches new rules over the size and placement of election billboards. A number of political candidates have already erected billboards across Grand Cayman, while several blank billboards, which are awaiting the addition of a candidate's face and name, are also in place. Some of these signs appear to contravene the new guidelines regarding the placement of billboards on road medians and roadsides, as well as on roundabouts. Marian Pandui, information manager of the National Roads Authority, told the Compass in response to queries about whether the agency had ordered any politicians to take signs down. Her response was, we do intend on contacting the candidates.
Who asked?
The Compass asked Marian Pandui of the National Roads Authority. And she said, we do intend on contacting the candidates whose signs are within the medians to have them removed. Now, while guidelines were issued regarding candidate signs last year, you remember they were told to take them down because it was far in advance and they didn't need to be up for 3 and 4 years, some of which still remain up, but it's a bumblebee, so it's cute. Those have been expanded to include international guidance to ensure the safety of motorists and pedestrians during the upcoming election season, Pandui said. And I probably should digress and say that those signs that have remained, I think the reason why they're there and haven't been taken down is they're on private property, person's yards.
Is that what it is?
I think. I mean, I'm trying to justify, the fact that we are a lawless society. We set the rules for everybody, but only some people have to follow it, and nobody gets prosecuted or, gets a rack on the knuckles. But hey, Cayman sometimes not a real place.
We're going to discuss this.
We need to discuss this. So the original guidelines stated that signs and billboards could not obstruct or interfere in any way the public's ability to clearly view either government signs, traffic signs, or to impair visibility or passage within the public right-of-way, including vehicle travel lanes, sidewalks, and bike lanes. But the previous guidelines did not specify the size of the signs and the distance from the road. Well, the new guidelines are now more specific. Under the revised guidelines, political signs must not exceed 120 square feet in size. The number of restrictions regarding the size and placement of political signs beside roads have also been issued. Under those new rules, no signs taller than 24 inches can be erected within 10 feet of the edge of the road or concrete curb, or within 30 feet of the road's edge at bends or intersections. Signs that are smaller than 24 inches must be no closer than 5 feet from the road's edge. No political sign or billboard of any sign may be placed anywhere within a public road median, which also includes, obviously, roundabouts. One of the things that we saw last year were the removal of billboards on the roundabouts, particularly where you can't obviously see through the roundabout and see, that car that should be exiting, but of course he's not going to exit. He's going to, keep on going, and he's not going to bother signal because that would take all the fun out of it. I mean, come on.
Right.
We were talking about demolition derbies earlier on. Now, until 2017, candidates could not erect billboards before Parliament was dissolved or prorogued, and signs could not be larger than 32 square feet and had to be set back 12 feet from the road. In February of that year, 2017, the Central Planning Authority dropped those policies, according to minutes of a meeting where the matter was discussed and determined that election signs could be erected at any time and at any size. So we are, I think, in terms of...
Could be erected at any time.
It could be erected at any time, could be as big as you want it, and they could stay where they were for as long as they want it.
And now it can't be as big as you want it.
Now it can't be as big as you want it. Now you can't put it just anywhere you want, and there are specific restrictions in terms of how close to the road, how they impair road vision, and how quickly they appear on roundabouts and the like. So yeah. So in terms of candidates thus far affected, I got to get to the good news. Jewel Heights, a candidate for West Bay Central, is among those who is likely to be instructed to take her signs down, which is on the medium alongside the Esterly-Tibbetts Highway. And another sign appears to run afoul of the new guidelines, this time an electronic billboard at the intersection of Esterly-Tibbetts and Ballaboo Road in West Bay, bearing the candidate posters for all members of the TCCP, the Caymanian Community Party, led by Andre Ebanks. So far, those are the two signs that appear to run afoul of the new guidelines, but there could be more. And candidates are advised that if you haven't been contacted yet, doesn't necessarily mean you're not on the list of people to take it down. It's just that the wheels move slowly. I think a point that Jewel Heights made in the article, which went on to say that nobody told her, So, but I'm sure when they do, she'll do what she has to do.
And so these changes are now being reflected in what the
NRA guidelines.
NRA guidelines.
Yeah, NRA. Let's see if they actually stated it. No, the National Roads Authority and Planning Department guidelines.
They're working together now.
They're working together. Well, again, it makes sense. I mean, roads are part of the planning and right of ways. So
don't get me on NRA.
Don't get you started.
Don't get me started.
Don't get you started.
Yeah.
So I suppose that's a bit of news for election.
But I would love to have them here in the studio. We need to invite them on as soon as we get all of our technology stuff started out.
Who talking about, NRA or
both
candidates?
of them? Both of them. Because,
all of the above.
All of the above. But first of all, like I said, you and I chatted, I think, last week. Well, yeah, it's only been here now.
It's only been a week.
Only been a week. So it was last week.
Episode number 7.
Last week, you and I were chatting about different things in relation to trying to make things fair for candidates.
Yes. Yes, campaign financing reform.
Yeah, and I think that this is again extremely important.
Okay.
We talked about the specifics of being able to try to equalize the playing field in relation to how monies are being spent and given those persons that mightn't be necessarily as loaded, as we would call it, giving them a chance.
Yeah.
And I also talked about the fact that I know from personal experience how difficult it is to even get venues where you can have your public meetings.
Yeah.
And I think all of these things are extremely important, at least under the present system, assuming we don't propose something new.
Sure.
Which I'm proposing something new, but sticking with what it is, you need to be able to find solutions to this problem because it is affecting democracy. It is a case that the public can't possibly make an informed decision if they can't hear the candidate simply because they don't have a venue, right? And the list goes on.
Or in this instance, they have no idea they exist because, well,
I can't even see it. I can't even see a picture.
Signage, pasted billboards are kind of short and few and far between.
And I remember putting up signs that were what I think that was either 2 or 3 sheets of plywood. Which what does that give you? 3, 4 is 12. 12
You're
times
the
8.
construction guy. You know these sizes. I thought Chris Saunders had won the record for the biggest political billboard ever.
Oh yeah,
I thought so, but then again,
well, you know where it started. It started with the PPM. Started with the PPM because I remember the first big sign that I saw. It was right out there on Linford Pearson Highway, right before you get on Rankin Drive, right there in the lawn.
Right.
I was like, oh, this is huge.
Yes. Yeah.
But
they were running a full slate. They had to make a big sign to hold all them candidates.
Actually, that's how it was.
That's how it was. See, it's not a joke.
They had all the candidates.
They needed a lot of space.
Some of them were bigger than others.
Some of them.
Just saying.
So. I'm not poking the bear.
But I remember putting up a sign. I think it was either minimum 2 sheets of plywood, but I'm thinking 3. Right? Like you could build a house after you finish using all that plywood. Right?
Or save it and use for hurricane shutters, which will come every year.
For boarding up.
For boarding up, quite right.
And the point I'm making is, I remember one person, which I said, of course, I had to scratch my head at least a couple of times. I didn't know you were running. Really?
Really? Did you not see my Statue of Liberty sign? How could you miss it? Note to self, add fireworks.
And so when I think of this, I'm saying to myself, Jesus, because if I had signs that large and people didn't know I was running, what are they doing to these poor candidates? And to your point, he's a good friend of mine too, the Bumblebee guy. Right. He's my friend too. Yeah. But those signs have been up forever and a day. And as far as I know, there used to be a rule that was saying something that after election day, I'd take your signs down.
Yes, that was the thing. See, that was the most important rule that I learned kind of, almost by accident. I almost got disqualified.
Yeah, you got to get them down. You got to get them down.
All election material, anything with your face or was promoting you, whether it be online or, on the ground, had to be removed. And again, I'm reminded of one good constituent who became obviously one of my favorite constituents. They were quick to say, Austin, you still got one sign up there on Spot Street. I didn't take it down, but you better go get it. So that's all right.
At least he called you.
At least he called me. I appreciate it. I zipped it, quicked it up quick.
So I say all that.
Yeah, you're right.
I say all of that to say that, I appreciate that. I say that to say, I really would like to find out what's motivating them. Like, where to get these dimensions? Now the largest one can be what, 120, you say?
Yeah, 128.
128, so 4 sheets of plywood.
Yeah, must not exceed 128 square feet in size.
Mm-hmm.
And no taller than 24 inches. And it cannot be erected
no taller than 24 inches?
Yeah, no taller than 24 inches.
How does that make sense? How do you have a sign, 120
square feet, but no taller than 24 inches?
What does that mean?
24 inches off the ground?
Oh.
Perhaps. Not you. I mean, yours was from the ground to the heavens.
Well, again, they have to describe that. They have to explain that 24 inches to me. I don't know.
Yeah, no signs can be taller than 24 inches. Can be erected within 10 feet of the edge of the road or concrete curb, or within 30 feet of the road's edge.
120 square feet is 4 sheets of plywood.
Okay.
How do you get that 24 inches off the ground? I don't get it.
Again, you're the construction guy. I know what a hammer looks like. Don't ask me how to use it.
I'm the construction guy. We're both reading this thing.
Yeah, I'm just saying.
All right, clarity is
needed. You're visualizing all of this.
Clarity is needed, Mr. Pandui. I simply pick up the phone and call Mr. Pandui and try to get some clarity on this.
Well, sure, absolutely. Obviously my colleague is, asking about inches, and inches do matter. So pick up the phone and give us a call at 745.
I'm glad I have your support in that,
2626. Yep, size matters here on Straight Talk.
Yeah,
and we want to know, make sure what we're talking about. And again, listen, in all seriousness, for every question that is asked on this program, there's at least one candidate who's probably going, I agree with that.
No,
I can challenge that. So, we're looking for facts and try to understand what the true position is, as our old friend used to say.
What's the girl again that's being challenged? What's her name again?
Her name is Marion.
No.
Oh, the one that's being challenged.
Yeah.
We have candidate Jewel Hides.
Jewel.
Who I believe is the Kemana's National Party. I'm not sure.
No.
That's another one?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, well,
I think she's running in...
as an independent?
I think she's running in Miss Catherine Wills' area.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
But the bottom line...
yeah, West Bay Central is where she is.
I just want to say, I really would like to get the specifics. I think we need to try to contact Mr. Pandui, get some of the specifics. But
yeah.
I would really try to encourage the government to make sure that they're utilizing some good leverage, because I think at the end of the day, you definitely don't want to do anything that's going to disadvantage the candidate. I mean, even that piece of marketing there, I'm not sure that's positive, right? Like, did her name actually have to be mentioned in a negative way? I don't know.
Yeah. And just as again for facts, Marion Bandui, it's Mrs.
Oh,
that's a lady.
Okay, fine.
A lady. I'm just saying.
But there was a Mr. Pandui.
Yeah, there is a Mr. Pandui, her husband. Though the lady, she was probably,
who was head of planning?
She was probably in the hula hoop competition. That's why you don't remember her name. You were too busy stabbing her out and winning your prize. Who cares what your name is? I won the prize.
I opened myself up to this. I know
you did. You did.
I know that this was used against me.
Golden use for at least a week.
Austin, I fear not.
I know. You're just being transparent.
Like Jack Nicholson would say, either you just take off that white faggoty suit.
There you go again. You can't say certain things, Ellio.
Oh, sorry. Okay, all I'm going to say is...
Quoting a few good men, ladies and gentlemen.
Everyone knows, okay, that when the game... This was a male and female competition,
Yes, which you told us sort of after the fact.
I'd like to be clear. Back in the 70s, there was no such thing as men entering into female sports. It wasn't allowed.
That's right, then.
This was a male and female thing.
Ever.
I had to do home economics. We had to cook food, Austin.
Yes. I thought that was a valuable skill.
Right.
That's why I said there's no humanity in the world that will starve whether they're married or not, because we were taught how to cook from a very, very young age.
But I couldn't help if my cookies were better.
Of course not.
So it's the same thing. And all I'm simply saying is, you had your chance. You picked up the hula hoop. And you have to face the consequences.
Anyway.
So either way, I think we should get them into the studio, because I don't want to see candidates disadvantaged. I mean, I don't know. How public did they make all of this anyway? Or are we just learning this now?
Well, this was the front page of the Cayman Compass.
No, I mean prior to this. Did they sneak this in the middle of the night or something, or what?
Dude,
prior to this, did you hear about it?
No, I did not.
Okay.
I did not. But I am not a candidate, so I wouldn't have heard of it.
But
maybe the candidates.
You're in the news.
I mean, you would think so.
You're in the news.
I am.
And you were not informed about it.
I was not informed. I didn't get a single email.
So think about the poor candidates who are just so busy, probably working hard as a committee of one.
You should have been a lawyer. You'd make a great.
I could have been.
You could have been a great trial lawyer.
Thank you.
I really think so.
That.
I mean, you got argument for everything. I mean, good Lord. So candidates basically have some new guidelines to deal with until we can, amend some of our technical challenges and start inviting guests, which hopefully, again, like everything else, slowly but surely we're going to get there. And certainly barring the National Roads Authority or the Planning Department simply sending us a WhatsApp message. If you don't want to be our guest, then we invite Ms. Pandui, who may be listening, to share some details on the new guidelines, when they were implemented, maybe explain what 24 inches off the ground means.
Yes, precisely. That one I don't know.
He just can't wrap his head around it. But give us a call or send us a quick message on WhatsApp. The WhatsApp number is 928-2562, or you can call us at 745-2626. We promise we will welcome you with open arms.
Sorry, for clarity. You're saying, does it read that it's not supposed to be taller than 24 inches off the ground?
Hang on, let me go back again. Under the new rules, direct quote copied and pasted from the newspaper. Under the new rules, no signs taller than 24 inches can be erected within 10 feet of the edge of the road or within 30 feet of the road's edge as it bends or at intersections. That's what it says.
All right.
And again, just to avoid any doubt, let me make sure that I copy and pasted the right information from the compass so that they don't call me and say, that's not what we wrote, look again. Because sometimes I admit I can't see for looking. That's the problem with old age. Let's go to the article itself. TikTok. We'll find it again. Only because, my colleague is particular. Let's see, under the new rule. Nope, it's the same thing. I copied the entire paragraph as it was written. So there was no expansion on that point any further. But perhaps the National Roads Authority or the Planning Department or even Miss Pandui herself will call up and give us some explanation. Or again, you can send us, obviously, a quick WhatsApp, and we will read your clarification for the elucidation of specifically election candidates here who may be tuning in this evening. Good?
Yeah, well, either way, I think there needs to be some kind of a bit of a grace or something, because I didn't hear about this, and you didn't hear about this, Austin.
That's right.
I don't see any callers calling in saying they heard about it.
They heard about it, right. Fair enough. You should have.
This
Planning
is
Department, National Roads Authority, come on, get on the ball here.
Correct. You can't be slipping in the middle of the night putting these things
you can't be doing these things, Come on. We're going to call you out. We will. We say in jest. Don't get your in a wad. All right. Another article that has also been in the news, and in particularly in the news and in the debates contained in Parliament, is this property along the waterfront that has been used and continued to be used as a fish market. And the fight between the property owner, because it is private property, it's not government-owned land, and the government, who have suggested and proposed, the Honourable Deputy Premier and MP for Georgetown Central, in whose constituency this property falls, has suggested that government should in fact acquire this property through compulsory acquisition, again on the basis of what we will call either eminent domain or the use of private lands by the public for generations, which I think is called, we have a term for that here in this country, and the name escapes me right now, but I thought about it earlier on. It'll come back to me, but let me read the article. Landowner Chris Johnson insists his waterfront property in Georgetown is not for sale at any price, despite government's plans to forcibly purchase the site for the fish market. Again, compulsory acquisition, in other words. The land located at Red Spot Beach is used by cruise tourists and some locals as a place to swim or sunbathe. It is also the location of a fish market, which government is seeking to preserve and which Johnson wants moved off the plot. Johnson, who has owned part of the site for 50 years, disputes claims that anglers have used the property to sell their catch for decades, while fishermen have used the general area for some time. He claims the pouring of concrete on his land for the market was recent and illegal. He goes on to add that the longer history of the spot, Johnson says, is as a rare and popular swimming hole on the waterfront, but certainly not a popular spot among fishermen featuring bringing in their catch or otherwise. He said generations of Caymanians and tourists had learned to swim at that site, and on cruise ship days it was packed with sunbathers and snorkelers. Johnson went on to say that government's decision was absolutely wrong in seizing or attempting to seize his property against his will, and would set, in his words, quote unquote, a draconian and dangerous precedent, saying that he would take this fight all the way to the Privy Council if necessary to prevent the acquisition, saying that this is a long way, this issue is a long way from being done. Now, up until this article appearing, and of course the disputed claim, I've just thought that, again, it reminds me of those, public beach access and right-of-ways. If they have been traditionally used as such, they should remain as such despite the development that goes on. But then I digress and think about how fantastic a great job we have done at preserving those beach access sites, which, again, I'm being sarcastic. We've done a terrible job. We can't decide what beach accesses should remain. We can't decide whose responsibility it is to keep it clear and free of debris. And we can't, decide who has the authority to police it, which department, or the other. And that's gone through a few hands in the years of government. But I digress. But up until then, I had taken the minister's word, the Honourable Kenneth Bryan, who debated this in Parliament, not this last Parliament session, but the one that came before it, I think before the Christmas holidays, where again he was very impassioned, saying that he used to go down there as a child with his daddy, and so on and so forth, suggesting that it has been a popular site. But I think it raises a number of issues. The first is the difference of opinion on what that site was traditionally used for. And normally to silence this debate, I'd find me a Caymanian, particularly from along the bay, as it used to be called, a towner that's still alive, that has certainly been alive for 50 or 75 years, that can settle this little disagreement as to who is right, who was there first. Huh?
I can cover the 50.
You can cover the 50? Well, there you go. Well, maybe we'll because the choices are few and far between. I mean, the sad reality is we're losing a lot of that elder generation, and those that could probably tell us are no longer with us, and that's just sad. But until somebody can clarify whether the minister was factually correct when he stated that the anglers have been there for decades and have used this site as a tradition, much again like the right-of-ways on beach access, or if the landowner, who again has owned part of the site for 50 years, no small amount of time, maybe he too might have some insight in terms that, this is who used the site. So that's the first issue, I think.
I have to tell you, I mean, first of all, when you mentioned this to me yesterday, this is the first time that I was aware that was in the hands of a private landowner.
Again, nobody sent you an email.
No one sent me the memo.
They got to do better, man.
And you know what? I think I'm in good company. I think a lot of people didn't get that memo.
Well, I didn't get the memo either. Like I said, I believed it.
Yeah, I remember that place always being something that the public was utilizing.
Yes.
And I think I'm inclined to agree with the owner that I don't remember the fishermen being there too long, but they've definitely been there for a while now.
Yes.
But not since, as we would say, since Wapakilfalop or something.
That's right. That's right. That's right.
But they have been there for quite a while, and they were just using the tents and tables and stuff like that. I'm surprised, kind of surprised, to hear that they've poured a slab of concrete there now. But it has been utilized by the public, and where I don't claim to be an expert on the land law, I would have thought that there were certain rules such as, how do you get an easement, for example? Let's just talk about an easement. We've always used this piece of land, especially when you had landlocked areas. I've always used this piece of land in order to get to mine.
Yeah.
And you can't get an easement. Like even when we were building the affordable homes, it was a case where we had to take our time and get rid of some of these easements in order for us to be able to go ahead with the construction. The government even has to do that. And you also hear the argument of, well, if you have that piece of property, you have to fence it off at least once a year or something to that effect.
Mm-hmm.
And I would have just thought that if you sat there and you've had that property for 50 years and you've never closed it off, you've never denied anyone access to that property.
Yeah.
I think you're getting borderline that it's arguably not your property.
Right.
And I don't want to be seen like I'm taking someone's property.
Right.
I mean, that's pretty serious. But you have to act as if something is yours. I think that's kind of the principle. And I think the gentleman involved is a lawyer.
Yes.
Right?
Well, he's an accountant, actually.
Oh, he's an accountant. Oh, okay,
yeah.
Sorry. Okay, one of those. So either way, I think basically it has to be some sort of a principle where you're saying, I have to take ownership of this at some point. I have to show that this belongs to me.
Right.
If it's even not once a year. And basically, even on his own admission, he's saying that people have been using it for the last 50 years.
Right.
Whether it's for diving or learning to swim or whatever it is, the bottom line of it is you've allowed absolute 100% unfeathered public access to this piece of property for the last 50 years.
But here's the rub, because what Mr. Johnson is saying is that what he's wanted to do and what the government has resisted, and I know because this came up during my term in office. He wanted to refurbish the area specifically, not to deny the public, but specifically to enhance it and make it a better beach for tourists who, again, as we learned yesterday in the headlines, in his view, have traditionally used it as a bathing hole or a swimming hole or whatever the case may be.
Right.
He just wants to spruce it up a little bit so it's more than just, crushed rock and a little bit of sand and whatnot. He wanted to add a little class, for lack of a better word, to the location for the use of the cruise passengers or whoever. Now, as I recall, I think it was more than just spruce it up. It may have been, a bit of commercialization, which I think led to, the debate beginning back then. An improved development, refurbishment is one thing, but commercializing it and developing it brings another ball of wax into the conversation. But as I recall, it was being redeveloped, or the plan was to redevelop it in order for it to continue to be used, maybe not by fishermen, but as a swimming hole. And I just throw that into the mix because that's my memory of it.
Well, first of all, like I said, it's new knowledge to me, and I'm glad to hear it. I'd like to thank him for allowing all of us as the public to utilize the property for the last 50 years.
Yes.
But like I said, it'd be interesting to get some feedback from some lawyers, someone specifically learned in land law. But again, from my half-day schooling in law on Fridays,
right,
as it would say,
yep,
that I think allowing the public access to something in an unfettered way, no Sundays off, nothing, just use it. I think you put yourself in a bit of an issue there.
Quite right. The second point that jumped out at me on this article, and again, not picking sides, is what Johnson claims is this decision to erect a building, or in this case, a concrete slab with fixed pillars that is attached to a canvas roof, obviously to remove anglers from the heat of the day and the wet of the rain. Now, why that jumped off the page at me is because, again, regardless of what side of the coin you sit in this argument, what cannot be denied is that it is private property. It belongs to some private citizen, not government. But even if it belonged to government, there's still the same restrictions. It's not yours. So who felt authorized to develop even the most modest of foundations and whatnot on private land? That in of itself is wrong.
That's a real squatter.
Yeah, well, it is. And
you have
again,
to take ownership of it.
Right. And I only say that to point out that we again have laws in this country. We shouldn't have heard about this issue when we're months or weeks away from a next national election, where, again, if you listen to the debate in Parliament, you swore it was an election campaign. And I'm sure the member used it as such because he's not, shy. He's a great politician. I tip my hat to Mr. Bryan. He is a great politician, and he's filling those shoes better and better all the time. But I believe, the erecting of a building on private property should have raised the alarm for planning or somebody long before we started arguing about who has right of access to the matter. We should have addressed the elephant in the room, that who built on this property without planning permission on private property. I think that's a point that cannot be ignored, and certainly in this instance, Chris Johnson, the owner of the property, has a legitimate argument, a legitimate gripe, which seems to be ignored in the wider conversation about
it's just a little,
who was here first.
It's just a little slab for dealing with the fish, right?
I mean, again, it's nothing special.
Yeah.
They put a slab down so they can obviously lay a table, so a cutting board. They put up a little canvas. Again, it's nothing stush.
I'm just rising in defense of the planning department at this point, because I'm just saying maybe that doesn't qualify for planning approval. But to your point, clearly, you should check the owner of the property.
Yeah.
Because even if it's government, like you've said, it's still not your property, so why are you building that there?
Right. No, absolutely. And I think that has to be answered. And obviously, again, the property owner has vowed to take this all the way to the Privy Council if necessary, so this fight is far from over. And I think the last thing that jumped out to me, which may very well prove to be the most important thing, is the lack of space dedicated by the government for either local or traditional activities such as swimming or fishing. Now, I grew up in town. I grew up along the waterfront. My grandfather, Mr. Teddy Harris Hides, was, as people like Steve McField and otherwise would tell me, they grew up on the bay. And I forget the little saying, not white, but, half bright, some foolishness like that. You're not black, you're not white, but you're kind of like right on the middle. And because you lived on the bay, you must have been affluent, I guess. I don't know. I don't recall coming from a rich family, but we're not going to go down that road. But I'm from town. And I have seen things like, I think it's the South Terminal, or maybe it's the North Terminal, right there in front of, where they have the upstairs Margaritaville. That area there. That used to be a swim hole. They used to have the island, remember? They would blow up every year for Pirates Week festivals and whatnot.
Like you mean in front of the museum?
In front of the, well, yeah, exactly, in front of the Cayman Museum. Yeah. Exactly. Whether that's the south or north terminal.
That's the south.
That's the south. Thank you very much. I've always viewed that as a swimming hole. Point in fact, we talked yesterday about when I was in high school and learning how to scuba dive. When I first learned how to scuba dive, it was my first encounter with, that whole marine world. And I had a little brother at the time, and just out of boredom, we would go down with our snorkeling gear and snorkel the harbor. Wouldn't try that these days because, it might be dangerous to your life. But we used to swim in it. So I'm not speaking out of something that I heard about. This is something I know about. But as the years have progressed, we have developed every square inch of Georgetown Harbor, just like we have developed every square inch of 7 Mile Beach. And the locals, whether it be preserving a beach for locals to swim at, whether it be preserving, a spot, dare I bring in the craft market? Because, again, we had the craft market, which was there opposite or next to Ugland House. But that was closed down in 2021 because the then minister, the now deputy premier, said, no, that's not good enough. We're gonna put them in a purpose-built facility. They cleared land next to Lobster Pot, and that is where the local craft people were going to go, because that was going to answer two challenges. Number one, it was going to be the government's attempt to identify a swim area that they'd never thought about before, because they always thought it was more profitable to sell beach land than it was to keep beach land. Now, again, light bulb is going on, light bulb, saying, you know what, maybe we should preserve this. So you found this piece of property next to Lobster Pot where the boat launches. You might see it, it's fenced off. They cleared the land for the purpose of putting a Cayman craft market there, a repurposed and redeveloped Cayman craft market, and a swim hole for tourists and otherwise other than 7 Mile Beach as an alternative, because it was also being debated at the time that beaches like Beach Club, beaches like Public Beach, and of course the Harbor Heights next to it, and even the future plans for the Kimpton further west were, for hotel guests, for stayover guests, but they were being inundated by cruise passengers. So the government, in their wisdom, decided that this was the property that we're going to be using for craft market and for swimmers. Like I said, they closed the local craft market next to Ugland House in 2021, kicked the little man out of tourism, but had no place for them to go, and they still don't have no place to go. And it's been 4 years.
It's on the old Tower Building site now.
Yes, yes, yeah. Correct. So, I mean, it just goes to say that this wider conversation is it's all well and good, I think, to fight for these issues now. And don't get me wrong, if the anglers, if it's their property, they've used it. God knows they deserve it. You know how hard it is to find good, fresh local fish in Cayman, period, that hasn't already been sold to the restaurants. It's difficult. Don't believe me? Try it, and you'll see for yourself. So I'm all for the local fishermen. But this criticism is really extended at past, and I dare say future governments, because, we have not preserved, and maybe even one for the conservationists, who knows, we have not preserved enough public space.
Don't bring them.
Don't bring them into the conversation.
I don't want to hear it.
You don't want to hear about it. I know you don't. And I don't want us to digress.
Yeah.
But, it just shows that the wheels move painfully slowly when it comes down to long-term planning. And I just say one final thought.
Yeah.
This is a reminder why when the government proposes things like the National Development Plan, it is so important that they don't just announce it, but they complete it. Now, one part of that is the public, consultation, the public involvement, because, whether the government, cuts this down or paves this up, somebody, somewhere, is going to find fault with it. That is a fact. Whether it's going to benefit Caymanians or not, somebody somewhere is going to complain. So government tries, and previous governments, they try to make sure they cover all the bases so that everybody knows what the plan is. But we haven't had a development plan, I dare say, since Vision 2008, another mini development plan. And we see all of the aspirations contained in Vision 2008 really being kicked to the wayside, again, for the same reason that development is king. And again, I'm not under any misconceptions that development isn't important to the revenue, to this country and to the overall economy. But you got to preserve something for the next generation. You can't develop every square inch of Cayman. And again, we have Bermuda to look as an example. Bermuda is the size of Cayman Brac with over 65,000 people. There is not a square foot of land that you can buy today. You want new property, you got to go up to get it. How many examples do we need to say, we don't want to go that route? We don't want to become that way. And they can't say, well, nobody told us, because it's there staring you in the face. And whether it be, again, public rights of way to beaches, whether it be, private landowner versus, public usage, or whether it be the disappearing of popular sites that the public can access. I mean, I can only think of Public Beach now as really the only spot Joe Public can go and enjoy the beach.
We still get to go by the governor's house.
You still got, no, let's not forget, that's a good beach too. That's a good beach, but it has shrunk in years. And of course, don't get me started on the cocoa plums. You remember the cocoa plums that used to grow wild there?
I do remember the cocoa plums.
My God. Now that was, again, another little bit of nostalgia when I was a kid.
Talking about it makes me thirsty.
It does. It would dry up in the mouth quick. But it was great with mango season. You have to go sour and sweet at the same time.
Okay, I have to jump in now.
Please do.
Come on now. I'm here.
I've talked
here,
enough.
Austin.
It's your turn.
I'm sorry. I'm just joking.
Yeah.
So anyway, on to this issue about this. You mentioned seamen or what do you call it, fishermen. That's part of the problem, though. I don't think so much it's fishermen, because it's the same guy there all the time.
Yeah.
But that said, I do enjoy going there and buying fish, and I think it's a good thing in many ways. I've seen our cruise tourists, and I'm sure stayover visitors are there as well. They're not normally tagged, so I can't distinguish, even though some people claim to be able to distinguish. And I see them looking and watching the guys cutting up the fish, and people coming there and buying. And I know I've went there several times to buy, and to your point, I enjoy going there and buying what I believe to definitely be some fresh to caught fish.
Right.
So I definitely think it has something to lend to the island, to our culture, and everything else. It's good to see it.
Yes.
But it does raise a question, right? How many fishermen are allowed to be there? And how do you get the spot, or is it just one or two persons that always get the same spot?
Good question.
Right.
Or is it first come, first serve?
Right. And like, maybe sleeping there overnight.
Yeah.
Make sure nobody can't take your chair, take your spot.
Maybe this is a question for the Public Lands Commission to answer.
Absolutely.
But again, this isn't public land, so they have no authority. It's private land. Mm-hmm. But you make a point.
And I wonder what he would do with that piece of land. Talking about the private owner now, what are you going to do with that piece of land?
Well, again, I mean,
just what, sunbathe on Sundays or what?
I don't know, but I mean, if we remove the emotion and again the Caymanian cultural heritage out of the conversation, it's his property.
No.
He can do whatever he wants with it. I know. What would you do with it?
Absolutely. It is his property.
You can build a sandcastle on it for all you care.
I'm not trying to remove that at all. I'm just curious if it was my piece of land. I'm thinking to myself, what can I do with that?
Well, it's a small little piece of land. So, I mean, really, again, in my mind, you put up, I'm just, spitballing here.
We'll talk about building too close to the beach.
Well, there is it. There's setbacks issues you got to deal with. And again, how do you build on something that's on the water line?
I think it's only about, what, if I make a quick guess, maybe 20-something feet of...
If that. Yeah, if that. Quite right.
So this is a legitimate question. What will you do with that?
What would you use it for?
Yeah, what would you do with that?
Well, again, as long as the road, and here's another point to make, only because it's on government's plans. I didn't say it was a plan that's jumping off the page, but again, governments and previous administrations have talked for a while about pedestrianizing downtown Georgetown, whether for cruise, business, or otherwise.
Well, no, that's a discussion.
I said the C word. And you know what? In your defense, we have a writer to the program who's contributed a thought to this discussion. And again, I say this with trepidation in my heart. It says, bro, just my 2 cents. Read the red spot. Government is simply looking to secure the land for the port. Well, I don't know, because if they were trying to secure the land for the port, they wouldn't want a fisherman or anybody on it. They would want it removed so they can build ports or other things. So
I don't know where that one came from.
Well, I don't know either, but we listen. It's an opinion from our listeners, and we weight it as heavily, as genuinely as possible. But I don't know. I have difficulty believing that this particular patch of land is, government's motivation is the port. I just don't. Because if they do that, they're going to remove the fishermen altogether, and nobody's not going to have use of it. And that's another argument altogether.
Again, whether it's government or whether it's a private owner, my question remains, well, what are you going to do with that?
Yes.
And I seriously don't think it has anything to do with the port. I've never seen a proposal that captures that little skate of land there with anything to do with the port.
But, there was also the whole upland development proposed by the previous administration. But again, the upland development, to your point, was a little further down We were looking at, in front of Mr. Arthur's 7-Eleven. At that time, there was concerns over what I call Hamburger Reef. And the only reason that is because of Barton Road. Barton Road is a straight shot onto Eastern Avenue and then on to the warehousing facilities that do exist where they are today on, I think it's Portland Road, or where is it? But under that plan, obviously that was going to be where we were going to move cargo to and run cruise tourism from what is now Hog's Bay. Again, if memory serves correctly, under the plan that was on the table.
Well, again, when they talk about the upland, they were actually talking about stuff on the actual port.
Yes,
but,
and beyond it.
Yeah. But, again, they're just trying to drag me into this tourism thing. But either way, I don't recall anything to do with that piece of land being utilized in relation to the port. I know that they even had proposals about, even having yachts on one particular section.
Yes.
And I don't think it was employing that.
Yeah.
But either way, it would be interesting to hear what the gentleman has plans to do with that. I mean, he might not have a plan, but I think it's relevant if you have a plan, because isn't utility important? Isn't it a matter of what am I going to do with this? Or are you just somehow selfishly holding on to this piece of land?
I think that's a legitimate question.
And there's nothing wrong with doing that. I mean, it is your piece of land. You could be sentimental. I have no idea. But I think utility would be important, right?
Yes.
What are you going to do with it? And I can only say thank him for allowing persons, including myself and other members of the public, to utilize it all this time, because I was completely oblivious to the fact that it was a privately owned. I always thought that little skate of land must have belonged to the government.
Right.
Yeah.
But again, I too thought the same thing, and was surprised when I read the article. But after reading the article, again, some thoughts jumped off the page.
So before we go to the break, are we going to break at 6?
We're going to go to the break at 6, so we have just under 6 minutes before the first.
So Austin, I remember, and I'm probably going to cause stress for my good friend.
Fire away, buddy.
Because
I know I opened the door already, so
no.
You got to walk through.
No, you don't know this one.
Oh, I don't know this one.
No,
All right.
you don't know this one. I could sing before this one, but anyway.
There was also a surprise you were supposed to tell me and everybody about yesterday, but we missed the surprise.
No. The surprise is coming soon.
Okay, coming soon. Watch this space.
Coming soon.
Right, the new hula hoop.
This kind of picks up on our discussion from yesterday.
Please.
And I know that this is supposed to be happening, but I'm pretty sure there has to be at least one person out there in La La Land that believes and is on the same page as me.
Right.
I think when people get permits in this country, it should be a requirement that you should speak English.
No argument from me. It's an English-speaking country.
No, hold on.
Good point.
Because I know somebody sitting and saying, yeah, but Ellio, they have to take a test. But listen, I have...
Which we know is so foolproof.
I'm trying to be nice. I am trying to be nice, but this is a little pet peeve of mine. But when you call a restaurant,
yes,
right?
Yes.
And then I have to end up speaking my chapiada, my broken Spanish, in order to get the order completed. This is not right, Austin.
No, it's not right.
No, and I'm thinking, what is happening with the test? It reminds me of that Craddock story where he used to be in Parliament saying, Madam Speaker, what about the yellow truck? I'm simply saying, what about these tests? Who is doing these tests?
Right.
Who's passing them? I'm serious, Austin.
I know you're serious.
This is not a laughing matter.
Well, it is if you knew what I was thinking. And again, to prove the fact that what Ellio is saying is in fact how he genuinely feels about it, what I'm laughing about, and if I did digress only for a minute.
Okay.
I remember recently last week you're on the phone to somebody who will remain nameless.
Okay.
Who weren't speaking enough clear, Queen's English to you. So they were saying something and you abruptly jumped in. No, speak English, man, speak English. You want to talk to me? Speak English.
Yeah.
That's what I understand. So he's making a point. He believes English should be the first language, and he's not just saying that.
Yeah, I think that I should be able to call a restaurant in Cayman, and I'm being nice. I'm not calling names.
Right.
But when you have people either working for you or you're trying to call a restaurant, and you really can't get this message across, it's starting to bother me now.
Yeah.
And I'm just wondering, because I know that there apparently was some issues with all this test taking. I thought we went past that, but I really don't know what's happening right now. Yeah. Because I've seen that happen on several occasions, and I just thought that I would vent that, get that off my chest, as we say.
Sure.
Because, not everybody can speak the certain languages here.
No, listen, I agree with you. I don't disagree with your point. We are an English-speaking country, and English should be a language. It may not be the only language but it should be a language that you know how to speak. Again, when we talk about laws, there is an English test that is given to every work permit holder who comes from a country where English is not the first language,
right,
as a means of testing whether they do, meet the minimum requirements in order to get a work permit.
The bare necessities.
But to your point, obviously there's many in this community, if we are honest with ourselves, who don't even meet that minimum threshold. But then one has to beg the question, well, how'd you get a work permit?
How did you get a permit? That's what I'm saying.
How did this happen? Who is responsible? And all we can say in defense of that is Cayman is sometimes not a real place. We will lose sleep when we recognize how many laws we have in this country that go unenforced every single day.
Yeah, and just to be clear, I don't have a problem with, it's.
But we're a country of laws.
It's almost attractive when people are trying to speak your language, and it's a little bit of word here and forward and backwards or sideways is fine. I'm really talking about when honestly you're having a real frustration because the person is just legitimately not understanding what it is that you're trying to say.
Right.
And that's where I think the problem is.
Yeah.
Little nuances is fine.
Yeah.
But especially when you're having to depend on someone to do something, it's frustrating to say the least if they can't. And I just want to throw it out.
No.
Wondering exactly what's happening.
Right.
And maybe at one point in time we might get WRC up inside of here and see if we can get an answer. But
again, that would be very useful. Just as a starting point.
So I did have someone say, hey, when are you going to have some guests in there, like the politicians, and get them in here? I want people to know that we will be getting them in here soon. And when you hear my colleague Austin and I referring to getting some of the things done, we're looking to get at least one more camera. We want to have one for a guest.
Yes.
It's on order.
It's on order, yeah. We really thought, the webcams we have uses here, we thought we could just go to the store and pick it up like we did these two. But unfortunately, nothing is ever in stock in Cayman. Ever. But yet we're first world, apparently.
Because if we do it now, it would mean that I would have to send Austin home and put the guest there, or vice versa.
Yeah. Just want to, we got a quick message here. And again, this is how folks, hear but they don't listen. Or they hear something and think that's what it is, and then they start propagating a lie. Apparently someone heard us talking about the election campaign signs guidelines. And of course, we called the name of Jewel Hides. And of course, they took from that her right to run for an office is being challenged, which I don't know where that came from. No, that's not what we said. Again, let me repeat it. The NRA and planning have come up with new guidelines relating to election candidate billboards, their location, where they're placed, their size and whatnot. Some of them have to come down. 2 candidates have been identified. I didn't say this. You can look it up on, I think the Cayman Compass has published the article. 2 candidates were identified in the article. One was Jewel Hides in West Bay, and another one, also in West Bay, was a candidate for the Cayman Community Party. All this is signs in the wrong place, not meeting guidelines, and may have to come down.
But see,
it's got nothing to do with that candidate's right to contest an election. I want to be clear.
But see, it's to my point, though. I raised the point earlier. I said, why you're mentioning their name? Because it's almost like,
10 seconds.
Was that absolutely necessary to mention her name? And obviously it's having a negative.
Yes,
that's
clearly.
Proof.
You were right. Keep it locked. There'll be more Straight Talk still to come right here on Bobo FM.
BBC News.
BBC News. World news from the BBC. Violent clashes.
Thick black smoke.
A tremendous legal victory.
Crucial elections.
Destructive winds.
A search and recovery operation.
A race against time.
An imminent threat.
Flying a drone over a rival team's training session.
Whatever is happening, wherever it's happening, catch up with the latest news bulletins from the BBC.
The home of the BBC World Service. This is Bobo FM.
The BBC's From Our Own Correspondent.
In today's Russia, no one is allowed anywhere near the political stage if they pose a serious challenge to Vladimir Putin.
Stories and reflections from our reporters around the world.
There is a major sense of insecurity here.
More people are coming in from Sudan every day.
From Our Own Correspondent from the BBC.
The home of the BBC World Service. This is Bobo FM.
How can we understand the world better?
The BBC World Service is a window onto the wider world.
The vantage point from which to survey
a new horizon.
News, reports, and analysis from around the world.
Stories we think matter.
Different people from different societies.
We get to the heart of global issues.
News, stories, and global perspectives from the BBC World Service.
The home of the BBC World Service. This is Bobo FM. This is Bobo FM, powered by Doctors Hospital. 24/7 urgent care, located in Georgetown at the top of Walker's Road. Introducing the Doctors Hospital Specialty Clinic, conveniently located in the Strand. To book your appointment at Doctors Hospital, call 325-9000. Across Cayman on 89.1 FM, online and on your smart speaker. The home of the BBC World Service. This is Bobo FM.
Hello, I'm Roisin Hastie with the BBC News. President Trump has said he's more confident of a peace deal in Ukraine following the first high-level US-Russia talks in Saudi Arabia since Moscow's full-scale invasion. In a wide-ranging news conference, the president said the war in Ukraine could have been settled very easily.
I'm looking at people that are being killed, and they're Russian and Ukrainian people, but they're people. Doesn't matter where they're from on the whole planet. And I think I have the power to end this war, and I think it's going very well. But today I heard, oh, well, we weren't invited. Well, you've been there for 3 years. You should have ended it 3 years. You should have never started it. You could have made a deal. I could have made a deal for Ukraine that would have given them almost all of the land, and no people would have been killed, and no city would have been demolished, and not one dome would have been knocked down.
The US Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, has briefed the foreign ministers of key European countries about the talks. The European Union's top diplomat, Kaja Kallas, warned against what she called Russian attempts to sow division. Speaking on a visit to Turkey, the Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has emphasised that Ukraine must be included in any talks about ending the war. James Waterhouse reports.
In Turkey, a visibly irritated President Zelensky said he would never legally recognise the territory Russia had seized and called for, in the likely absence of NATO membership, a strong Ukrainian military, possibly backed by foreign troops in a post-ceasefire existence. Mr. Zelensky was scheduled to travel to Saudi Arabia after visiting his Turkish counterpart, President Erdogan, but he said he had now postponed the trip so not to add legitimacy to the early negotiations to which he was not invited.
The Vatican says Pope Francis, who's 88, is suffering from pneumonia in both lungs. He continues to receive treatment in hospital in Rome. It said his respiratory infection was presenting a complex picture. Bethany Bell reports from Rome.
The Vatican said Pope Francis had a chest CT scan, which showed the onset of pneumonia in both lungs. It said the Pope's condition continued to present what it called a complex picture. The pontiff has been suffering from a respiratory tract infection for which he's received antibiotic cortisone treatment. The Vatican said the Pope was in good spirits and spent the day reading, resting and praying. He thanked the faithful for their good wishes and asked them to continue praying for him.
The president of Ecuador, Daniel Noboa, has said that organised crime makes as much as $30 billion a year through drug trafficking, extortion and illegal mining. That's about a quarter of Ecuador's GDP. He urged Ecuadorians to support his anti-crime policies, saying many still fail to understand that security forces were fighting a real war. BBC News. New figures released by NASA indicate that a large asteroid now has a 3.1% chance of hitting Earth. The object, known as 2024 YR4, has the potential to hit the planet in December 2032. Sophie Glass-Ryan reports.
When the asteroid was first spotted last December, it was predicted to have a just over 1% chance of impact with Earth. Now, figures quietly released on NASA's website show that probability has crept up to 3.1%. Experts have said there is no need to panic, as the probability will likely drop to zero again as astronomers gather more data. The asteroid is estimated to be between 40 and 90 metres wide. It could cause severe damage in the unlikely event where it hit a populated area. However, it is not large enough to bring about a global catastrophe.
Lebanese residents returning to their empty villages in the south following Israel's military withdrawal have found scenes of widespread destruction. BBC correspondents who visited the villages of Maroon Uras and Kfar Killa say every building has been damaged or destroyed. Chad's army says it's ended a 4-month operation against Boko Haram in the west of the country. It said it had killed nearly 300 jihadists and the group could no longer do harm in the region. President Mohamed Idris Deby launched the offensive in October last year in response to a major Boko Haram attack on a military base in the Lake Chad region. A Native American activist who has spent nearly 5 decades in prison has been released in Florida, weeks after his life sentence for the killing of 2 FBI agents was commuted to home confinement. Leonard Peltier has insisted he did not murder the agents during a confrontation on a Native American reservation in 1975. BBC News.
The views and opinions expressed on Straight Talk with Austin and Ellio do not necessarily reflect or represent the views of Stingray Media, its staff, or contributors. Callers to the program accept full responsibility for the views expressed. The show host and affiliates are not liable for any statements made or any harm claimed. All callers to the program indemnify Straight Talk from all claims. Offensive, defamatory, or unlawful content will not be tolerated. Be a part of the conversation by calling 745-2626. Now, here's Straight Talk with Austin and Ellio on Bobo FM.
And hello and welcome back, K-Man, to more Straight Talk. I'm your host, Austin Harris.
And I'm Ellio Solomon.
And the phone line...
Not too much time left in the studio today.
No, it's, again, 6:06. That seems to be the magic number for us, isn't it?
Oh, it's 6 today.
6:06, 6 minutes past the hour, yeah. 6 minutes past the hour, but again, it helps to have BBC ending right on time. 6:06 in studios, now 6:07 is the time. Phone lines are open, 745-2626. Whether you want to be a part of some of the conversations we have already had, by all means, let's hear from you, 745-2626. Or if talking on the radio or spending your valuable credits not good enough for you, you can WhatsApp us, send us a voice note by dialing 928-2562. Or you can use that same WhatsApp to send us a little message with your comments on the issues at hand and share your thoughts on those issues. We are also simulcasting live on YouTube and Instagram. And likewise, you can use any of those platforms to communicate directly with us. But if that isn't enough, you can email us at host@straighttalk.ky. Just to recap for the benefit of those who may be tuning in, we started the 5 o'clock hour talking about the headline that election candidates ordered to move billboards breaching the new signage guidelines. Again, under new guidelines issued by the National Roads Authority and the Planning Department, which I guess is safe to say was sent in the first instance directly to the 41 or so candidates that have so far identified themselves, sent to them that perhaps giving them some guidance as to where signs can and cannot or may not be placed. That's the first issue, and we've shared a bit of detail on that. But also at the same time encouraging anyone within the know to, again, perhaps provide some elucidation specifically as it relates to some of the guidelines, the size and distance from the ground, et cetera, again, inviting either Marion Pandui from the NRA or planning or any member of the planning department. I think we had a call whilst we were on the air and didn't have the opportunity to connect during the break from the Ministry of, again, I say this as a ministry that I remember, Ministry of Education, Youth, Sports, and Lands, but I think that may have been changed to something else under this current administration, but that's how I remember it. No one's, provided any clarification on that subject, but we certainly, with the time of 20 minutes remaining, you can still use this opportunity to do so. The other issue we've been tackling, of course, is this whole issue of Red Spot Beach in downtown Georgetown and the dispute between the present administration and the private land owner as to what the site has traditionally been used for. Has it been used by fishing anglers, or has it been more used for swimming, either tourists or locals? And of course, 3 points that jumped out of the page for us. Again, the difference of opinion in the first instance obviously questions the popular known thought that certainly both Ellio and I were of the viewpoint that has always been used by the fishermen. It seemed plausible to us but not to the landowner himself. The other fact is the decision to erect, a building or foundation slab on what is private property, not government property, but no one said anything about it until this conversation reached a crescendo about who has the right, to be there or not. Just curious. And then, the overarching issues, whether it be the Red Spot Beach or whether it be the Cayman Craft Market, very little thought has been given by past administrations to secure opportunities for the so-called little man, either in tourism or economics in this country. Today we're talking about fishermen who, like every other fisherman, sells to the restaurants, but also the locals wanting fresh fish. In Georgetown, we know where to go. Just like in Boddentown and just like in Northside, you know where to go if you want to get fresh fish. And those are traditional locations. If you don't know, then ask a Caymanian, they'll tell you.
I want to just jump in to say something really quick, Lon,
sure.
Back on the sign issue. And I think it's just fair of me to say it. Again, as I mentioned earlier on, I think it's unfortunate that the in this particular case that the Compass actually mentioned those names. I'm not necessarily sure it was absolutely required.
Yes.
And I won't try to assign any motive to it, but I'll just say that the consequences of that I don't think is positive. I think it gives a negative light when there shouldn't necessarily be a negative light.
Right.
I think it's very easy for any one of us, because both you and I sitting here in the studio, you even directing the news every day. I went out of my way for the last 4 years to try not even read a newspaper. But
I understand how you feel.
It's like I don't want to read a newspaper.
I understand how you feel.
Yeah.
It's all bad news anyway.
So again, we weren't aware of this, and likewise, I mean, candidates are human beings.
Yeah.
They can make errors as well, and I just don't think it's necessary. And for that reason, I think that I want to spell that out, and to see that it's already had somewhat of a negative effect when somebody says, oh, well, isn't the person now their legitimacy as a candidate is being challenged?
Right.
That is not the case. That is absolutely not the case.
That's not the argument today anyway.
And for what it's worth, let me just say that I did happen to see a short video clip that did come out from Miss Jewel Hydes, and I can't remember the exact constituency, but I think she's running in the same one with
West Bay Central.
Is that what it is? West Bay Central, with Miss Catherine Wills.
Yes, sir.
And I liked the video that I saw because, amongst other things, I think she was talking about being able to make water sports and certain other things in that particular industry, jobs for Caymanians only, which is, right up my alley. Yes. If I might say so myself.
You might say so yourself.
But yeah, so I wish her obviously the best in her candidacy, and obviously if she and or anybody else has made some error on the planning stuff, again, let's see if we can just get it fixed. But clearly she's in the race.
Yes.
And we're wishing her all the best of luck.
Absolutely. Well, 745-2626 is the number. If you want to comment on one or both of these headlines that we've been ventilating between the two of us for the better part of an hour, then by all means, comment away. However, because there is no such thing as dead air on this show or any other show that we're a part of, the show must continue on, keep rolling forward.
On the revitalization stuff in town, first of all...
I haven't even started on it yet. I'm going there now. You're preempting me, Ellio.
Oh, sorry. Well, this mind reading
you know the future.
This could be.
Yes. Let me begin it, and then you comment.
Okay, go ahead.
All right. So just moving on to a third headline for the day, this time coming from the pages of Cayman News Service, another fan favorite. Georgetown revamp too late for many businesses is the headline. It says, after years of dusty, disruptive roadworks, millions of dollars in public cash, numerous changes, delays, and the loss of several businesses, the Georgetown Revitalization Initiative is almost complete, according to the Planning Ministry release. As the end is in sight for the Georgetown Revitalization Initiative, which is effectively the partial repaving of 3 streets and the addition of some street furniture, saplings, that's trees, and other features. Most roads in Georgetown business district are fully open. Edward and Main Streets reopened on Monday, which the release said was a milestone, marking the near completion of the project. However, the costly and frustratingly long, drawn-out period, which has reportedly seen more than 55 changes to the original plans, has been too much for several small cafes and shops. Regardless of the ultimate goal of the revitalization initiative to make the capital more pedestrian-friendly, a number of small businesses were able to endure what has been literally 5 years of massively reduced foot traffic, and they have had to close their doors. Now, this was a point that you...
Sorry,
picked
what's
up.
the source again of this information?
CNS.
Oh, there you go. That's what I thought. Go ahead.
Yes. Again, that's why I stopped at the first 3 paragraphs. I didn't give it a chance to pick up momentum because we start to slant in a different direction the further we go. But again, to try to be balanced nonetheless. And this is, again, regrettably, this is another headline that I sort of agree with because it's been plain to see. And you've dealt with it a little bit last week, I think in episode 2 or 3, if not episode 1 it was, where I
tried to avoid it being number 1.
Hit the ground running.
But certain people just dragged me in.
But again, this takes us back to, whether you're a business or otherwise operating in Georgetown, whether you believe that cruise tourism has any direct benefit to, more than 3,000 people in this country. Again, we ran the math and did the numbers and have been over this territory, but I suspect we'll go over it a few more times before we get to April 30th. What, likewise, another, again, casualty of this, not least of which the 55 or so businesses that have had to close their doors, but also the Cayman craft market. And just as an aside, a writer did send a note to us regarding the craft market saying, and I quote, Dr. Roy's original homestead, there just off of, I think it's Boilers Road, was strategically chosen as a prime site for a national attraction such as the Cayman Craft Market, where crafters and merchants should showcase our heritage of crafts as at that particular location, and as that location is enshrined in Caymanian history. But that was also earmarked for a possible location in the craft market. It could have also been earmarked for a possible location for the museum, because certainly they could use more space. And of course, the historical significance of Dr. Roy McTaggart and his homestead, where he lived, where he worked. All of these things were at one time or the other on somebody's plan for a revitalization effort. But as it currently stands, the craft market closed in 2021. We pledged a new property next to Lobster Pot, but that is just cleared land and fence. No opportunity. So when we hear our government say we care about the small man, again, you have to take it sometimes a little tongue-in-cheek, because you care about the small man, but you have no problem in seeing 55 businesses go out of business in central Georgetown. And you care so much about culture, but there's no culture being shared with, the cruise passengers, what little we do get now today at all. So, maybe it's just me, but those are the facts as I see it by looking.
Yeah, well, again, I will say, and I say this with all objectivity as far as I'm concerned, I encourage everybody to be critical in their thinking. You can listen to me, you can listen to Mr. Harris, you can look and see if there's a lean or a slant, do whatever you like. And I'm definitely happy to make sure and announce where I stand. And I'm not surprised to hear that coming from CNS, because I think you wouldn't expect them to blame the fact that you've lost almost 1 million tourists in the year.
Yeah.
You wouldn't expect them to blame that on the fact that you've lost at least 40 businesses in downtown Georgetown. But I assure you, that has something to do with it.
Sure.
The revitalization effort, I think that was started under your administration too,
yes.
Mr. Harris.
Yes.
I think it is a good thing. I think it is a major undertaking. Maybe they bit off something more than they chew. Maybe they didn't realize what they're actually getting into, because I would imagine, without being able to discuss things directly with the persons involved,
yes,
Georgetown would have had tons of wiring and all kinds of stuff that was that was legacy stuff that you didn't really have track of it. It wasn't like you're tracking some of the stuff now.
Yes, good point.
And so somebody has to go through that with a fine-tooth comb.
Yeah.
Because the last thing you want to do is say that you've just shut a bank down or some major business down for 3 months because you cut a wire that was...
Yes.
I didn't know it was there.
Oopsie.
So... And people should know that anytime you're doing a renovation is more costly than building a new building.
Yeah.
That's what renovations are about. So hats off. Don't normally say hats off to the government, but hats off to the government. I think that it had to be a major challenge, and they seem to be working with it. And I believe it's going to look good when it's finished.
Yes.
But I think the real reasons why we are losing so much business, at least 40 that we're keeping count of so far, is because you've lost almost 1 million cruise tourists. That's a simple reason. You know, so again, if you're going to run an objective newspaper, you can talk about revitalization, but also talk about the fact you've lost 1 million cruise tourists. Yeah. I think it has something to do with it.
Sure.
You know?
And for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. And we, to your point, are seeing it. And that certainly lends itself to that lost business. But certainly, whether it be the lost business from foot traffic of cruise passengers, but likewise, just regular, everyday consumers that live in this country, we all don't shop on 7 Mile Beach. There's a lot of things in downtown Georgetown that, you know, we used to utilize, but now can't or haven't been for the last 4 years because you can't get downtown. We have a caller on the line.
You can't get much place to park.
Let's go to the phone lines. Good evening, caller. You're on the air.
Hey, good evening, Austin. Good evening, Ellio. Dominique Banks here. How are you doing?
Great, Dominique. Thanks for taking the time. What's on your mind?
Oh, well, you know, I was listening in and, of course, enjoying the show as usual.
Fabulous, fabulous.
Fabulous. Yeah, not to be too long because we don't have much of that time left, I think.
Go ahead.
But, you know, obviously, like Ellio was saying in part, just to catch on with the issue with the decline in businesses, especially in Georgetown, obviously, like you were saying, a lot of them suffered and couldn't endure. Mm-hmm. But when we look at some of what is affecting Georgetown, even and probably triggered a lot of the revitalization of Georgetown, was the fact that if you go back into time, we decided to allow a developer to build a new city in our island, right, called Camana Bay.
Yeah. Yep.
And if you go to Camana Bay right now, you would see that most tour buses leave Georgetown Port and go directly in there, either to drop them off to do their shopping with the vendors there, etc., and to also be picked up to go to Stingray City and Rum Point and so forth. So you've allowed a developer to come in to suck the life out of Georgetown, put it in the middle of, of West Bay in Georgetown, literally, where he owns personally and is now gaining literally all the profit, because who makes more money than the landlord, right? You can go there and vendor all day and think you made an arm leg, drive around in your Ferrari that you got a loan for, but when you got pay rent, hey, I'm the better off guy, the landlord.
Sure.
So even though...
Excellent point.
Yeah, because we are getting tourists here in Cayman to some. I mean, it's declined. We can blame a lot of it on bad weather. I mean, I have statistics to show that when we first opened up back in that, it was 2021 or 2022, 2021, 2022 period, we were doing awesome. The weather was good for some reason right after COVID. We actually increased the sales that we were selling individual trips for. People were giving the trips away before $25, $30, $40 here. Yeah. And we increased them all the way up to $65 and making the 40, which used to be the maximum, become almost the minimum. So things had started to increase during that period. But then when we got into 2022, 2023, statistics shows based on, obviously the ticket sales that goes out to those boats and those tour buses, that it declined. And when you look on it, we had a lot of canceled port of calls from the cruise ship during that period as well, due to bad weather. So even if we had this mega port that we so desire during that period of time, I mean, otherwise we build the port so big that the ships can come inside and safe dock. But they still got to go through bad weather to get here, right? So I was just saying there are just these factors that you throw into it that I know you obviously can bring up. I personally feel the country needs a dock, so there's no doubt about it. Where are we going to put this dock is really the big question. If all the people running right now with, on that particular topic, we could say, hey, I would like that dock to be in the North Sound, just like the so-and-so developer showed us in one of their diagrams, right? Or I would prefer it in Red Bay. And just like we're having a referendum, if, people say they want a dock, the government will decide where that will go. But, given some clarity to if we, the people, elect you and honor and provide you with a referendum with a yes on it to this particular thing, where would you like this project to go? And if your project, is in line with what we would like, then, hey, let's all go to hell together, right? As they say. Yeah. So I'll pause there, gentlemen. But like I say, I enjoy always listening to the show, and you guys always have an educational, interesting topic. And you're talking about the modern times. I know I listen to some other talk shows. You're talking about the past more, you're talking about the present, and so forth. And of course, most of us today live for the present. We can barely save for the future. It is what
True
it is.
that.
We just keep working and striving,
Yes,
like I tell people all the time, keep your chin up. But gentlemen, I'm not going to take up any more of your time. I'll let you have the last word.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dominic.
Yes, too.
Thank you for calling.
I do appreciate it. With 4 minutes left remaining, I'll give you an opportunity to respond.
No, I want to thank the caller, first of all, and I'm glad to hear him say that he regardless of what the circumstances are, he is pro the peers. And I think that when we find ourselves in that position, I think it should be hopeful, again, encouraging persons to vote yes. I think that the industry is very, very important. But he raises an excellent point when he talked about Kimana Bay and the fact that that is also having an effect. And I think that that is something that is easy to overlook.
Easily.
You know, so so at least we see a triad of things happening right there. We're talking about the revitalization. We're talking about the decline of cruise tourists, irrespective of what we believe the reasons might be. Right. And again, the pull effect that Kimana Bay is having on many businesses and therefore foot traffic and stuff in town.
Sure.
And again, we mentioned, I think it was yesterday, and giving kudos to the Flowers family in terms of their construction and some very good construction in Georgetown.
Yes.
So again, all the more important what they're doing as well. So at least we can hopefully see if we can get Georgetown back up. And I don't know when this revitalization is expected to finish, but I believe that it will look good. It will be something positive for Georgetown, and we need that little bit of a lift.
Well, you know, it's an election year, so it's probably going to finish like the day before April 30th or April 29th.
Cut the ribbon, yeah.
That's when they cut the ribbon, just before you go to the polls.
Hey, I've seen them cut ribbons when it wasn't rated.
Quite right. So who knows? No, I'm just looking in the article, and it does not, I don't believe, elucidate me or you any further in terms of when this project will finally be finished. But if it does say so, I'll look again, but I don't have the time to look in this short window of time. We did receive one text message going back to the red spot, and I want to share it for completeness because the listener took the time, so we're going to take the time to read it. The writer says, I'm 60 years old, and I learned to swim on that red spot 56 years ago. There were numerous fishing boats hanging around there on ironwood posts when they returned from fishing and sold fish there. So it is clear to him that within the last, 60 years of his lifespan, it has been both a swimming hole, but also populated by fishermen as well. So
I think, and I thank the author of that for giving that clarification.
Yes.
And if that is the case, I can probably see that actually happening because in my mind's eye now, I can probably see men cutting the fish on the boat. I think what's changed is for perhaps the tent, the table, and the slab.
Yes.
Like that sort of environment has somewhat changed, but thank you very much for the...
No, absolutely. Thank you to all of the listeners and particularly the contributors who took the time to either call in, Dominique, or... Potato. For their contributions. It's, we sit here in this room and we talk about issues that certainly affect our lives because they affect your lives. We all have to live here. And we don't claim to have all the answers. And we certainly don't because we don't get all the emails.
Yeah. And again, I want to take this opportunity before we have to leave.
Yes.
Again, encouraging persons, and also you can provide all the information, but encouraging persons, send us some text. Let us know what are some of the topics, some of the things that's bothering you on your mind. Let Austin and I do the research if necessary and have some good ventilation of those various topics right here on Straight Talk. So,
no, absolutely.
What's the number they can text us?
Well, again, you can text us 928-2562. That is our WhatsApp line. But we are on Facebook and Instagram. And we're there under Straight Talk Show. You can send us a message, direct message, or send it to our board, as the case may be. And of course, we have email, host@straighttalk.ky. Share those thoughts with us, and we'd love to tackle the issues that are important to you. But I'm your host, Austin Harris.
And I'm Ellio Solomon.
Thanking those of you for tuning in and encouraging you to tune in again tomorrow at 4:30 here on Bobo FM.